Hello, friends. Happy Friday. As one of my colleagues says every time it's a Friday, it's a good day to be a Friday. I'm realizing my hair is out of control. Wait, there we go, a little better. You might notice that I have magical star freckles today. This is like my ultimate favorite snap camera filter, so I figured why not leave it on. Today's topic is just in time for the weekend. It's one of my favorite topics, and it's about hobbies. I love picking up and putting down hobbies. Anybody who knows me has known me for a longer than a season will have an experience where they come up to me. You might have come up to me and asked me, "Hey, Christina, how's the Carnatic singing going? Or how's the pottery going? Or how's the scent making going?" And I might say, "Oh, I'm not doing that anymore." So I have a tendency to maybe once a quarter, maybe once a year, so anywhere between 2 to 4 times a year, I find some art project or craft project that I think would be interesting and I try to learn it. And I highly recommend that you check this out. I also have a good friend who actually makes monthly goals for herself, and some of them are learning how to do hobbies. Some of them are other goals like saving money or other things. Shout out, Erin, to you. Great idea. But some of them, one was learning how to paint watercolors, and it's become something that she's really liked to do. So I would make sure to share with you that a hobby doesn't have to be something that you get really good at. So some people do hobbies and they get really into it. They're making model airplanes, or they are collecting things, or they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and they do that one or two things and they love it and they collect everything about it. They learn everything about it. That's wonderful. And that's a great way to do a hobby. But those people don't need an encouragement to pick up a hobby because they're already doing it, right? They're hobby people and they have their hobby, right? And some people feel like, oh, I wish I had something like that. I felt like I loved and was so into. I just don't. Nothing's been that interesting for me. Totally get that. I've been the same way. Um, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy learning something new until the point where you feel like you have a new skill in your tool belt and then putting it down and picking up another thing. So this is where that to-do list comes in handy. Even though it's something fun, right? Something fun to learn and it's optional, it can be hard to put down the Netflix remote and press no, not next episode, and do something that requires a little bit more energy. So I highly recommend picking a couple of things you're interested in. They don't have to be hard. It might be singing better. It might be watercolors. It might be um, learning how to do tricks with your vape smoke. I don't know what people do. Hobbies people do. Mine tend to be very artistic and crafty because that's what I like. But there are of course plenty of other styles of hobbies, and you can learn how to do anything on YouTube nowadays. You can type in beginner's guide to paper making, right? That's one thing I've looked up recently, and it's there, right? So I wanted to share a couple of hobbies I've been working on recently, which probably won't be the hobbies I'm doing next time you see me. But one thing I did, which I, by the way, have had on my list of things to do since December, and actually much longer than that, for years, is I picked up this kintsugi repair kit, and this is what was in the thumbnail. So you can see this golden sort of seam here. So this teapot was something I created in my pottery class back in Singapore. So that was the very first ever, I would say, first time I had what I would call free time. uh, Obviously, I had free time before that, but it was sort of like and between school and friends in high school and college. I and trying to get enough sleep and trying to spend time with my family. I never really felt like I had much time outside of that. And when I moved to Singapore, I finally had just a job and some free time in the evenings. And I said, what would I always say? What did I say I always would have done if I had some time? And so that's a question I would recommend starting with. If you're like, I don't know, I don't like to do anything. Think to yourself, what did I ever at one point say? Oh, if I had some spare time, it would be fun to learn how to sew, right? Think of that, write down a handful of things, and then put a couple of little, again, break them into smaller tasks and put them on like a to-do list and say, in March I want to learn how to X, and the first task is look up YouTube video about how to do X. And then the second task is look up materials list for the cheapest, easiest way to get started. And the third task is order materials. And the fourth task is try something, right? That might be all you do. It might take up 4 weekends in a row. And at the end of it, you'll have something. And even if that something is not great, the reason I'm talking about the importance of hobbies is that what you will have is a different feeling of gratification than you get from other things. You get a sort of sense of artistic, I did something not necessary and yet um, beautiful or useful. It's not the gratification you get from spending time with your family. It's not the enjoyment you get from being entertained by somebody else. It's not the gratification you get from volunteering and like doing some good in the world. It's sort of that gratification you would imagine an artist gets when they've created a beautiful piece of art, even if all you have is a kind of shitty watercolor. When I put this together, I swear, I've been talking about doing this for years. And when it ultimately took me 30, 45 minutes to do this. I really enjoyed it. I read the instructions. I put it in. It doesn't look perfect. It looks pretty good. I've got more usable pottery than I had before. And I just felt like, wow, I did something with my own two hands and my own brain that wasn't necessary, but was beautiful and useful. So that's a really important sense of gratification. I'm in this room, which you haven't seen before. This is my guest room / yoga room / craft room, to show you the other craft that I've been working on. So this is I've been doing scent making over here. You can see everything sort of laid out on this table. And I find that really fun because what it allows me to do is to connect something I really like, which is spending time and thinking about my community with something kind of artistic. So I like to go through, and when I'm going to go see a friend or a family member, or if I'm not and I want to send them something, I'll think about them, I'll text them, what are your favorite scents or smells? And then I'll try and put together sort of a bespoke fragrance. It doesn't take very long. There's not really much to learn. You just mix the scents together and put them in like a high enough proof alcohol to make it a perfume. Now I've started I bought a big giant gallon of fragranced soap like 2 or 3 months ago before all this stuff started. And I was like, oh, that'll just be a lot cheaper. Every time I run out of soap, I can just pour some more in and make a cool scent that I like and dump it in there. So that's really fun. It's been very useful and fun to give to people. Again, not necessary, but useful and kind of creative and artistic. So I highly enjoy it. The other thing I would say is, obviously a lot of people already have hobbies that they kind of enjoy and they struggle to find time to do them, maybe because of their work, maybe because of your kids. And what I would encourage you to do, now this is something from a person who doesn't have kids, right? But I would encourage you to try to do some type of or form of a craft with your kids. Not every kid's going to like this. I 100% know. But instead of saying like, oh, it's mom's got to sew, like, don't come into my sewing room. It's like, give them 2 pieces of fabric and, a dull needle. When they're older, you can't give this to a little kid, right? And have them stitch a pillow together. My mom did that when I was young and I loved it. You just hand sew it and then you put some fluff in it and you feel like, master of the universe. My dad used to make paper with us and do art projects with us. And I remember it very fondly. Now I talked to one of my sisters the other day and she was like, oh, I didn't like making paper. I thought it was dumb, but I really liked it then. She's like, but I really liked the other thing, right? The artistic thing where we put stuff on top of the water and, made swirls and stuff on paper. So kids aren't going to love everything, or just get out the craft paper and the paint and so on and so forth and have them do whatever they enjoy while you do something else. I know it's easier said than done, but it's about saying, if this time is important for me, I bet this kind of time is important and valuable for my kids or my loved ones as well. It can feel really frivolous to take time to do hobbies and crafts. Sometimes it's not the most important thing, but putting it on your to-do list and saying, you know what, this is a valuable part of being human, is just feeling like I can do something that has some sort of use and some sort of value, even though it's not fully necessary, is really rewarding. And it's not just rewarding for hobbies, sitting and sewing or doing your needlepoint or et cetera. Usually on the internet are associated with, introverts, people who are like, oh, I just want to drink my tea and, crochet this hat. whatever. But I'd highly recommend, even if you've never really been a hobby person and you were like, I like to go out, I like to do stuff. Think of something you would like to be able to do, even if you don't, doesn't really sound very interesting to learn how to do it, and give it a try. I think it's really helpful for a person who is extroverted to have a little bit of time to focus on something that's expressive, even though you're not necessarily in a community. Also, hobbies give you a great way to form virtual communities, because if you do get into something, then the dog is on the bed. They're not usually supposed to get up on the bed. Hi, I'll shag you off in a minute as soon as we're done. Um, for instance, not just hobbies are great, but also interests, right? I have whippets now, and there are some people are just like nuts about whippets, and I could make like a ton of friends in half a second if I went online and started looking at whippet pictures and posting about what my whippets do. The same thing with specific type of singing, the same thing. There are perfume making forums online. There are forums for Japanese and Chinese arts. There are forums and video communities for pottery, and I mean anything you can think of, there's a community online. So it's valuable for extroverts to get a little bit of a break and feel like you're expressing, but also valuable because it's another great way to enter into a community that you might not have known was available to you. So I hope that you are enjoying hobbies, even if you don't have much extra time now, even if you have less time. I would prioritize it. I don't have any extra time, but it has always been part of my day. So, in my weeks and months. So I'm really enjoying a chance to be at home and do those things. Let me know if you have what problems you have. If it's problems with getting started, or not knowing how much to invest, or not being able to find time, or trying to leave all your project stuff out and then your kids get into it. Whatever problems you have or struggles, and then also whatever joys you find when doing some type of hobby type, artistic or other sort of craft like project, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. And happy weekend.